there is a lot of problems in post-processing. I think beginners usually it's not cohesive. It's probably too saturated, too contrasty or something. Like with too much clarity. Like this is some common mistakes you see. Like when I look at my first photos, they're ugly. And but some of my first photos, they were actually good. They were actually well composed and everything. They had a potential, but when you're a beginner, you kind of want to show off and you think you're doing great, but yeah.
So welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of Eyeshot 50mm. And today we're sitting down with Nicolas Castermans. Nicolas Castermans is a documentary photographer with over a decade of experience capturing remote cultures and lifestyles. Winner of the first place in the series category at the Eyeshot Open Call 2024 with the project Breath of Modernity, which we have right here. His work has earned recognitions in competitions like Travel Photographer of the Year and has been published in major outlets such as the National Geographic and GEO. Before starting, I want to leave a small message to all our viewers. If you enjoy what we do, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support is what allows us to continue creating unique conversation and content about street and documentary photography. And don't forget, you can now also find and listen to the Eyeshot podcast on all major platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Deezer. So, Nicolas, thank you for being with us and welcome. So, for those who don't know you, who is Nicolas Castermans, according to Nicolas Castermans?
So I'm a French guy who was born in the French Alps, actually not far away from Italy, just by the Monte Bianco, the French side of Monte Bianco. Yeah, I was born in a family who, first of all, allowed me to travel quite a lot, not too far away when I was a kid, but like travel was definitely something in our family. And when I was 21, I decided to pursue a master's degree in China. So this is where my real traveler life started, if I can say. So at the age of 21, I went to China. I studied 2 years over there, but I also traveled in total and explored China, Southeast Asia, and Nepal, Mongolia, Russia, all these regions in the course of 3 years, more or less. And when I graduated, so I was 24 years old, I think. Yeah, when I graduated, I met a Polish girl who became my wife. But at that time, with my girlfriend, we decided to go to South America. Previously, I had done a 6-month internship in Peru in a travel agency. So during my studies, I was already interested in the travel industry. I was really into travel, so I figured out I could maybe make a career in this industry. So with my girlfriend at that time, I proposed when we graduated to go together to Peru and see what we could do together over there. Yeah, we worked for my previous bosses 3 to 4 months, but at the same time we explored. I took her to all the places I already knew in Peru and in Bolivia and in the countries around. Very quickly we decided together to set up our own travel agency. In 2016, we launched our own travel agency over there, and we started guiding for cultural tours, but also for more trekking tours and etc. Yeah, it's over the course of several years that I've came to know the country very well, and as a guide, I first of all approached this culture, these people, and I got to know them very, very closely.
Now, I wanted to know how and when did you realize that photography was your passion, and how and when did it actually became part of your life?
Yeah. So it was definitely in Peru. First of all, I came into photography because of the travel agency. I figured out that, having some beautiful photos for the website to sell trips was an asset, and very quickly it became a passion. In just a few months, I was watching all the kinds of tutorials available on YouTube, for instance. So I'm a self-taught photographer, and it really became a passion, even an obsession. And also, some people in my family, for instance, I've got one uncle who's a photographer, and he told me once, Nicolas, if I was you, if I were living and seeing what you see every day in your life as a photographer, I would be so delighted. It's just amazing what you're able to experience, and it just like clicked, in my mind. And yeah, I thought that actually if I were to come back to all these places, these communities that I was getting to know more and more deeper, I thought, I had the feeling that in the end, after 2, 3, 4, 5 years, maybe 10 years, I could, have a solid project and body of work, and the project actually slowly, I didn't have a project at the very beginning. I was just like returning to these places and getting to know the people, shooting. And after 2, 3, 4 years, I was looking at what I had already. And actually, these photos showed me what I was interested in, what I was compelled and drawn to photograph. And that's how I noticed, that what I was experiencing, like the changes I was seeing in these communities, in these highlands of Cusco in Peru, how this changes, affected the locals. And I just noticed that I was all the time drawn to capture all these signs, these little shifts, in their culture.
You mentioned that you grew up in the French Alps. Do you think your background in some ways has influenced you, not necessarily geographically, but your experiences before moving or traveling the world? Do you think that that part of your life has in some ways influenced or shaped the way you do photography or your way of approaching photography as well?
So the background definitely helped, with the traveler I've become, and the outdoor person that I am as well, because I was surrounded with amazing mountains and lakes and stuff. I was all the time outside. I actually grew in a very, very small village. It's like 1,500 inhabitants or something, very small. And I was surrounded by sheep, horses, and yeah, the mountain in general was a thing in my family. And because we traveled, it's also the way we traveled with my family. We usually traveled, on 4x4, doing a lot of camping, outdoor stuff. And so this background definitely helped me become the traveler that I am, the adventurer, if I can, if I can say, I don't know. When I traveled to, or when I guided these treks in Peru, it's very challenging. It's very, very high in altitude. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's above, like over 4,000 meters above sea level, sometimes 5,000. Some of these incredible mountains that you saw maybe in the project, they were shot on 5,000 meters. And yeah, we usually go 5, 6, 7 days, accompanied with locals and horses, carrying all our stuff, and sleeping by -5, -10 degrees in tents. And this is actually where these people live as well. So I was so fascinated, like if you feel like at the end of the world, you end up in a valley. And it's just like amazing to see people like thriving in these environments,
And was there a specific moment or experience that made you realize, yes, this is my path, I want to go with that you still hold on to in some ways?
It was just a gut feeling. I felt that it was making me so happy and fulfilled creatively. Especially, I felt that I was very privileged and lucky to live such a daily life. It's not like common. I was not sitting in an office. I was seeing all these people. And photography actually was an amazing way for me to show like my friends, family. Like through a Skype conversation, it's not like easy to apprehend, like to see exactly what you're living. So photography and storytelling, like paying attention to all details and stuff in a photo, they can tell a lot, and show. So yeah, but it really became a passion when I was so back in 2017 or 18.
And now, do you remember the very first photograph you've ever taken? And I wanted to know also if that photograph has, for you in some way, helped you mature or grown artistically.
The first photographs that I was happy with were back in Asia, when I was traveling through China, Southeast Asia, Laos, Vietnam. At that time, I was traveling with a compact camera, but shooting everything auto, and I didn't know anything about photography. But again, like I remember my uncle, who is a photographer, told me like, I posted these photos on Facebook, and he told me like, you've got an eye, you've got an eye for photography. Like I had an eye or something for clean composition at least, and of course light. I think every photographer is necessarily attracted to light. So in this first photograph, I remember having one in southern China where with rice terraces, or one in Laos. Some people on a boat, on the Mekong River, sunset. This kind of cliché travel images, but they were well composed and well made for a beginner, at that time. So
That's great. And if you had to describe your own photographic style in 3 words, what words would you use?
so travel, documentary, this is for sure, and the third, maybe storytelling.
And what are your main influences? So, which photographers, artists, directors of photography, or movies have been your main inspirations in your own work?
So the first who comes to my mind is Sebastião Salgado. I remember when I don't remember actually when or where, but I watched his documentary, The Salt of the Earth. It's probably I think it's the title in English. And this documentary absolutely blew my mind. It was extremely powerful and showed me how a dedicated photographer, but not only photographer, is a human being with a strong passion for humanity and with a lot of emotions can translate, in long bodies of work, in long projects. Because usually I think on average, he took maybe 10 years for every project. And that's why actually when I started photographing in Peru, I had this in mind. I was not in a rush to make some good photos every day or whatsoever. I was like, every good photo is a path to maybe something bigger in 5 to 10 years. So he's definitely been my first inspiration.
In your photography, we could say that there is a will to follow the natural time of those people. And since you have portrayed a variety of different subjects, my question would be, how do you choose the subjects and the stories you want to tell through photography?
How do I choose them? So for this project in particular, it was because of my job. I was returning every week or every month, over there. So I used to meet these people, and they used to recognize me. They used to welcome me, with food and maybe a beer or something. So the subjects, they were here. They were on my way, if I could say, But this particular family, because the series I've uploaded, for only for the Eyeshot competition, the 15 photographs, most of them were taken in a particular family. It's a long story, very long story. It's actually my wife who met them by accident. She went there on her own with her motorcycle. She wanted to camp at 5,000 meters in front of these rainbow mountains, beautiful mountains. But she had an accident, like an accident. She broke the tent. And it was already 6 p.m. It was getting dark, and at 5,000 meters, it's like 0, -5 degrees very quickly. So she kind of stressed, She had to get herself out of this difficult situation. So in the darkness, she went down to this community, to this village, which is on 4,300 meters. And it was too cold, too dark, and so this village, especially at that time, hadn't seen any tourists almost, and had nothing to accommodate, a foreigner, a tourist, or whatsoever. So she went to a shop or something and just asked for help, and in the end, this family offered Isabella, my wife, to stay at their place. So like the day after, she calls me, Nico, I had to tell you what happened, and she tells me the whole story. And she says, like, we definitely have to go back together. It's a lovely family. It's amazing. And she had actually shot a little bit of footage, like with the GoPro or something. So I could see them, and I was like, wow, it's amazing, how they live, who they are, and etc. So we came back together. And something clicked again. We became very, very good friends and very close. And we came back and we came back and we came back, And so I think it was in 2022. We also became the godfathers of the 3-year-old Neymar. His name is Neymar.
What exactly do you try to capture in photography? Is there something you want to always convey in your art, or not? How does it work for you?
When I shoot people, culture, tradition, I'm really looking at very small details. Like my photos, they're not complex. They have 2, 3, or 4 layers, not more, but I'm always looking for a gesture, which tells about tradition, like a cultural gesture or something, which tells a lot about like their daily life, their activity, their culture. I'm looking for a look, for sure. I'm looking for a clean background, for something that tells about. Ideally, my favorite type of photography is environmental portrait. I want an environment, whether it's outside or in a house, something. I want an environment showing and the person in this environment. I'm not necessarily really only into portrait photography. I'm more into documentary in the way that I want to show people uh, and their surroundings, their not only the place in which they live, but also like the culture, the history, the country in which they live, and what they're going through. You know.
Yeah, it certainly gives you the vibe you want to convey. And are there any other key elements that you want to find, that you look for in your photography, that makes you consider a photograph successful?
So yeah, like I said, like probably a nice look or expression, whatever the expression. You know, I want the expression to say something, to suggest something. I want the light to be cohesive, to like I'm not necessarily looking for the perfect light. I also like shooting when it's midday, harsh light, because it tells something. It tells about the environment, the harshness maybe of their work or something. So yeah, an expression, a light, a clean composition. As I said, I don't want things to be like too complex and hard to understand for. I think it's for the average viewer, for someone who's not necessarily into photography. You know, I want my photos to be like accessible to everybody.
And as a documentary photographer with a very specific focus, how much of your work is planned and how much is spontaneous?
It's almost all the time spontaneous. Yeah, I've never even staged or posed someone. First of all, I'm really looking for something candid, true. So yeah, this is yeah, spontaneity. I can plan a trip. I did plan, for instance, to stay 10 days with this family, but I didn't have any like photos in mind or photos I wanted to. I just it's I'm a photographer, but I'm also part of this family right now. So I was not shooting all the time. I was just like enjoying time with the kids, and during these 10 days, just the relationship we've had like just went even stronger.
And for you, is photography more of a tool to tell stories or to explore the world around us?
No, I don't need photography to explore the world. I was exploring exploring the world. It's I was already traveling before being a photographer. Nowadays, that's for sure. Photography is an excuse to go to one place or another. If I'm interested, in Central Asia and the steppes and the culture over there, I know that photographically I will be like happy about this. No, I think I'm a traveler first. I love being in these places. I love exploring. I love languages. I speak different languages, and yeah, getting to know these people, understanding what's going on, in the society, in their world, and yeah, photography is a tool in this way to show my view, on this world.
Now, instead, I want to talk a little bit about the project Breath of Modernity. In Breath of Modernity, we can see documentation of the changes within the communities you're photographing. So, what exactly inspired you to document that particular transformation, and why focus on the transformation these communities are experiencing rather than on any other particular element that might connect them all?
So there are several things. I think the first one was when I was guiding, I noticed year after year actually that I was seeing and meeting less people in these valleys. And so every time I was super enthusiastic, about like going there and photograph. And sometimes I did treks where I met nobody. Nobody uh, the valleys were being deserted. So some people left their settlement, their community, just to go maybe lower in the valleys in towns, to work or something. In this particular region, this region is actually very close to the Amazon jungle, and a lot of people actually leave their herding lifestyle, yeah, their herding lifestyle to go to the mines in the Amazon region. It's just like 3 hours away. Once you reach a pass, a 5,000-meter pass, you go down to the Amazon jungle in 1 or 2 hours. And a lot of people go there, work for a shit salary, sorry to say that, but they work for almost nothing in the gold mines, for instance, and stuff. So I was looking, first of all, I was noticing, like all this region being deserted. Second, I was seeing tourism coming. I was part of it, of course. I was taking people, but to a certain extent. And some of these mountains, actually, they're called Rainbow Mountains. They're so beautiful that in about 2 or 3 years, actually in 2016, it was unknown to the public. I went there first time 2017, I think, just guiding clients. I was with my local friend working, and from far away we could see some colorful mountains, and I was saying like we should go in there and explore over there, and we stumbled upon this amazing mountain, So in 2017 or 18, it became known to the public through probably Instagram and everything, and in just 2 years, roads have been built, in 2 valleys, because it's on top of 2 valleys. And I saw actually tourism coming on the right side of the valley, which is called Pitumarca. On the left side is Kusipata. And these 2 valleys and communities were fighting each other because of this new resource, actually, touristic resource, And there was like some serious fight, between this community. There was a lot of jealousy, a lot of greed. Of course, all the big companies, big travel agencies from Peru, from Cusco, they all wanted to get there. Before it used to cost, I don't know, maybe $100 to go there, in a organized tour, a 1-day tour to these mountains. And after 1 or 2 years, it was maybe $10 to go there. It became like crazy. And one particular Rainbow Mountain has become the second most visited place in Peru after Machu Picchu. So I was like, okay, all these communities are going to be completely changed, maybe corrupted, maybe whatever. A change is happening very quickly in these mountains, and I was like a witness, just like returning every 2 weeks, maybe guiding over there, and I was seeing more and more people. Like every day, on average, there's 2,000 people visiting the Rainbow Mountain.
And what was the most exciting or meaningful moment that you shared with this community, if you would like to share it with us?
So they just asked, especially the father, the father Demetrio. It's one of the man. I think the second photos in the series. The portrait like opening the door. He's the father of Neymar. He just loves us, and he's amazing. We love him too. And one night he said like, I really would love you, Isa, and you, Nico, to become like more present in the life of my kids, and to have a good influence. Good, I don't know, but to have an influence, he said. And yeah, we've become very, very, very close, and it's an amazing family. He's very proud of his community, his culture. He wants to do community tourism as well. And so we've been talking also a lot, because so his community is below one of these Rainbow Mountain. There are several in the region, and so far they've been organizing it way better than what they done to the most famous one. To the most famous one, the 2 valleys, they're destroyed and nobody is living there anymore. People go on ATVs, quads or motorcycle. They destroyed even the landscape. There are roads and trails absolutely everywhere and everything. And so Demetrio, he's been there. He's seen that. We talked together. I told him like my experiences with what I saw over there. And what I appreciate is that he's very into community tourism. He wants the whole community to take advantage of this new tourist resource that they have. So now roads go to this mountain, but so far it's beautifully done, and all the income there is for the community. It's shared. It's for infrastructure like road, electricity, and schools. So far it's looking good. The second one was actually the mother of Neymar, who's Mercedes. She left her parents when she was a kid, maybe 10 years old, to live with her uncle and aunt in this community. It's a common thing in the Quechua culture, and so the parents, I think, wanted her to have some education or something, and the parents were living, they live in a valley, they still live in a valley quite far away, which is normally also like close to any foreigner. So yeah, one day, and she has now 3 kids, and her mother had never seen her kids, and I was like, she literally lives maybe 30 kilometers away. It's nothing 30 kilometers away, but when you have to do everything on foot, or it's with 3 kids, it's so she had never introduced her kids to her mother. So one day we all went together. I organized a taxi. we all went there. We walked. We carried a lot of goods and things, and we visited the family. And this was heartbreaking in a way. It was amazing, but so touching, so moving. Yeah, this was strong for her, for everybody.
And I wanted to connect to this a little bit more in a second, but I wanted to first ask you, we're talking about beautiful, meaningful moments, but I believe there must have been also challenges, as well, because it's maybe a different kind of looking, of researching. So you're used to this landscaped because it's maybe a different kind of research and looking. So again, was there any challenges that you really had to face while documenting this community?
Once you know the people, they're very open to being photographed, and they know me, they know my intentions, and very often I bring them also prints or so. In this way, there was not any challenge. The most challenging part is going there and live there. When I stayed 10 days in this community, it was 10 days on 4,300 meters without shower, without toilet. It's more challenging. You have a strong headache sometimes because of the lack of oxygen. You can't sleep very well. You're very tired. And for them, like if you play football with them on 4,000, they can run. If I run 1 minute, I see like stars everywhere and I want to faint, The challenge is more like physical, I would say.
So, as I was saying before, Breath of Modernity was awarded first place winner in the Eyeshot 2024. And my question is, what did it mean to you to win the series category in the Eyeshot? What were your feelings? How did you felt? How did you feel?
It meant the world, just to, first of all, on a personal point of view, like being recognized at this level with this jury. It's a confirmation that I've reached a certain level and that I can tell a story. So it's a confidence boost. It was encouraging a lot, first of all, but second, it meant. Like for me, what I loved at first sight about this contest was the prize. I 100% prefer a book coming out of this that a money prize. For myself, for the family over there or the community, I also plan to offer it to the community. Being able to create a book, like I've always wanted to do a book and offer them or something. It was actually already in my mind before. With all the photos I had, but I don't have any experience, and so working with professionals and, on the sequences, also having having a different view, which is not like attached, because I'm very attached to some of the photos, and I think it's the common problem to all photographers, and I'm not necessarily good to judge my own photos, so. And I'm so happy actually that a book is coming out from this, because I can't wait to offer it to them,
Landscape is such a big part of your work as well, of your photography. So it's like it turns into a subject itself, a part of the narration, of the storytelling. What's the most incredible location you've ever shot in?
I think it's definitely over there in this region, that's for sure. This trek is actually quite known nowadays, and it's considered to be among the 10 beautiful treks in the world by National Geographic. The viewers probably know only the 15 images that I submitted for the contest, but actually I sent many more photos to you, and I think you probably saw many more landscape images about what the place looks like. It's just mind-blowing. It's 6,000 meter peaks and glaciers and so many lagoons, colorful lagoons everywhere, with alpacas grazing, as little silhouettes and rocky houses, made of I don't know. It's just like a fairy tale place for me. So it's probably the most beautiful. And all these Rainbow Mountains, like a geological wonder, It's
In this kind of long trip, like the one you did for Breath of Modernity, preparation must be everything to begin with. So, how do you prepare for a photography trip? Is it more spontaneous, that you go by yourself and see whatever happens, or do you have a specific workflow that helps you plan ahead?
No, it's spontaneous. As I said, I was a traveler before being a photographer. When I go there, my first goal is to leave something amazing and share it. Usually I share it with my wife or with friends or photographers. And from the photography part, I just go with one or two lenses. It depends on the nature of the place I go. If I go For 5-day trekking, I usually take zoom lenses so that I can, have a bigger reach, on the mountain and everything. But if I go to the community, to the family, I just take my 35mm and maybe the 50mm. So yeah, in terms of photography, and I have only 3 batteries. I have a power bank, and hopefully it holds the whole trip.
You're also dealing, let's say, with a delicate terrain, so to speak, in that you are interacting with communities that have a very rich history and are currently facing many, many challenges. So, how do you interact with this community to capture authentic but very respectful subjects as your work is? So, how do you capture authentic but respectful shots?
It all depends on the connection we first make. I don't come straight with my camera, At first, I share a few words, in Spanish or even in Quechua. I know just a few words in Quechua. If I'm with my family, my Peruvian family, there's already some kind of trust, around this, and yeah, I just take time to talk, to build trust. I very often show my photos, what I do, the type of photo I want to do, if they accept. Yeah, these are photos that I take along the trail that I guide. Usually, people after 6 or 7 years guiding over there, they all know me. So it's even funny sometimes. Like some people say, "Hey, Nico, today can I wear this poncho and be on my horse?" And you make these photos of me, and next time you print them for me. So for one guy, for instance, I already gave him like 2 or 3 different kinds of photos of him. He wants to be photographed. So
since you've traveled to remote places, was there any time you faced dangerous situations regarding the environment itself where you had to live, let's say, in the same manners, in the same ways that the communities you're photographing are living it? So like snowstorms, anything of that sorts?
yeah, snowstorms, for instance. I've already been caught in a huge storm, a lot of lightnings, and the only thing we had to do was, once you go to I would just hide, I was with clients, but I would just hide under rocks, and so we switch off everything, all the communicating systems, we sit on our bags, we try not to sit on the floor. We have, you just pray. Otherwise, yeah, snowfall, I already found myself with snow until the knees, and you have to pass like 5,000-meter mountain passes, and when you arrive, you have to dry everything. Otherwise, so we all stay next to the only source of fire we have, and we try to dry everything, our boots, and so yeah, the conditions can be pretty harsh in this environment. Surprising in which way? I don't know.
And what was instead the most surprising situation you faced?
I've been surprised when I've been, for instance, when I've been able, to organize this trip to the mother of Mercedes, like just being granted the right to go there, which is normally forbidden, and for me it was like, wow, I'm gonna go to a place in Peru which is inaccessible. I'm gonna meet people who live completely disconnected from the modern world and the civilization. They will see me arriving, they will learn, they will know that I became the godfather. I don't know. It was stressful a little bit, but also super exciting, and to be granted this access, and yes, actually they almost never speak. Llamas speak. Alpacas, they're more, no, they're more a little bit afraid. They try to stay like 1 meter or 2 meters away from you. They're curious, very funny animals, but once you get a little bit too close, if you're not one of, they're amazingly cute and amazing to photograph and just to play with as well. And
now I want to switch gears instead, and I want to talk a little bit more about the technical aspects of photography, which is something that it's very interesting for our community as well. So could you tell me what kind of tools do you use when you document like Breath of Modernity, and what is something that you cannot go out without?
so I own a Fujifilm X-T5. In the past, I had the X-T3, and I studied with the X-T1. So I've always been a Fujifilm. APS-C sensor, quite small and compact, because I have to carry my bag, and a heavy bag, with a lot of stuff when I go on these expeditions. So if I go, as I said, to the mountains, very often I travel with only one lens, which is a 16 to 80 millimeter, but it's a crop sensor. So I think it's equivalent to a 24 to 120, a full frame camera with a fixed f4 aperture. So it's not ideal, we could say, for people photography, portraits and stuff. But for landscapes, and the reach, and just having a zoom lens when you're in these environments and you have no idea, it's not planned, you have no idea what you're going to be in front of, so a zoom in this case was, and it was super light, as I said. But if I'm in a cultural event, tradition, or a community in a village, I'm with my 35mm prime 35mm f2. Yeah, and recently I got myself the 50mm just to shoot maybe more portraits. But yeah, these are the two main lenses I've been using for my whole photographic career, if I can say. Yeah, the only thing I need, I need my backpack, I need my tent, my sleeping bag, and I need my camera and my 3 batteries, because in these environments you want to be sure to, yeah, and a power bank, yeah. Ideally 2 lenses, one prime and one 35. It's my comfortable field of view, and the zoom lens, especially if I want to zoom on the mountains or on a landscape or something.
Still staying on the topic of technicalities in that sense, now I want to know a little bit more about your post-production. How is your approach to post-production in your shots? Do you try to keep them as raw as possible, or how does it work for you?
So I only edit my photos on Lightroom. So I shoot RAW. I edit my RAW files in Lightroom. I very often use as a base, as a starting point, I use the Fujifilm film simulation. Sorry, I don't know if you're familiar with this. Very often I go with the classic Chrome film simulation at the very beginning, and then I just twist, the shadows and the contrast and the white balance. I want for a project, for instance, if you want everything to be kind of cohesive, you want to have a similar white balance, more or less, depending of course on the light and the time of the day you shoot. But in the end, I look, so I put stars, on my photos, and I can see like the 15 or 20 good photos from this project, from this shoot or whatever. I see them all together in Lightroom, and I see that this one is not matching, the colors or something. So then I will tweak. I will tweak especially the white balance. But yeah, no, in terms of contrast, and I try to be constant. I look at the histogram. I don't want to lose details in the blacks, and I don't want to lose details so very classic, I just stay in the histogram.
We could say that you've been in the field of documentary photography since quite a bit. And I wanted to ask you, what are some common mistakes that an emerging photographer, an amateur documentary photographer, might encounter when starting documentary photography for the very first time?
Common mistake. Beginners, I think they have, or I used to have also like big problems with making a story, a whole story. You can make one incredible photograph and that's it, and it doesn't make for a story. So usually when you make a story like this, you want to have introducing shots, for the place, the landscape. Then you want to know the people, you want to know the culture, you want something, like a close up on details. You want to so this is something that comes, with experience, maybe with looking at others photographers' work, like just learning about photography, about what the masters have done, in the field. I've also led a few workshops, in Peru, and I saw, what photographers used to, more beginners photographers, what they were doing. Usually they have maybe 1 or 2 good photographs, but it doesn't make, a global project or something, and there is a lot of problems in post-processing, I think. What beginners do usually, it's not cohesive, it's probably too saturated, too contrasty or something, like with too much clarity. Like, this is some common mistakes you see. When I look at my first photos, they're ugly, But some of my first photos, they were actually good. They were actually well composed and everything, and I re-edited them with the knowledge I have now or last year or something, and so they had a potential. But when you're a beginner and you kind of want to show off, and you put like all the sliders a bit too much, and you think you're doing great, but yeah.
And if you had to give one piece of advice to someone just starting out, what would it be?
In documentary photography, yes. To start with the prime lens, I started myself with only the 35mm, and it taught me so much and so quickly, actually. It just teaches composition, and the efforts that need to be made to really make a good photo. Yeah, again, I'm just thinking about one example of a guy, I was guiding, in a photography workshop, and it was with a big zoom and all the time zooming and unzooming. And I was in the end, but you don't know what you want. Do you want a close up, or do you want something wide? What do you want to show? Like, if you just stick to one focal length at the beginning, then it's nice, to have different focal length. I think when you know what they're for, when you know how to make the best use of them. But I think at the beginning, the first advice I would give is to go with a prime lens.
So, photography is an evolving art. How do you see the future of documentary photography in the digital and social media era? Because it's very, very different from showcasing it on Flickr or posting it or making an editorial plan. So, that's a very different approach. And again, how do you see the future of documentary photography within the advent of technology we are living still today?
I think there is and there will always be a place for documentary photography, for real story with that means something, because it becomes obvious, that for the majority of people it's annoying, the what we see on the social media, or all the same photos we see everywhere, the same cliches. Like, so many photos have become cliche, and like, in a way, taking a photo of a Quechua person, indigenous person, could be cliche. It can be cliche. It has already been taken thousands of times, millions of times, if not. But in the end, what people want to know is, in the end, what people really like is, like, when there's something deeper that has been built, a connection, like the one I have with this family, for instance. And so there will always be a market, I think, for even in the AI.
And since there are so many ways to tell stories today, is photography still a powerful storytelling tool, according to you?
Definitely. I mean, it's not because cinema arrived that photography died. I think it's not because photography arrived that painting died. Photography, I don't know. It's like an extension of painting, or maybe the eighth art. I don't know. Like, there will always be, like, photography lovers, an industry for this, bookmakers, storytellers. I'm not afraid about this.
Okay, and now going back to you for a second, what projects are you working on right now and what's in store for the future?
I'm kind of in a transition now, because so I've been living in South America and in Peru for about 6 to 7 years, and recently we moved and settled down here in Poland. So it's the first time in about 12 years that my wife and I we live in one place. We have a base. Before, we were like nomads. We were always going from one hotel to another. We never had even an apartment in Peru or something. We were always either guiding, working, either like staying in. So now that I'm settled down in Europe and went back to a different lifestyle, I would say we have many resting, recharging. I mean, we have traveled since then quite a lot. We went to the Balkans with our 4x4. We went to Central Asia, to Kyrgyzstan on motorcycle. We went to Kazakhstan. We went to Georgia. And actually, I'm like, after. So I told you I've lived about 3 years in Asia, 6 to 7 years in South America. So now I feel like I want to explore, more regions in the world that I don't know at all. And then when I went to the Balkans, I thought to myself, like, it's probably an introduction for something in the future. Or when I went to Central Asia, I actually want to see what I'm drawn to photograph, in the coming years. And it could be in Central Asia, it could be I don't know, and I don't know African either. So I feel like I need to know more about the world, the cultures, and everything. And probably I think an idea, a project, or something will naturally come, like it happened to me with Breath of Modernity.
And giving everything we've said so far, where do you see yourself and your photography in 10 years from now?
I feel that I'm so passionate about it that I feel that every day, every time I go for shooting, I improve. I just love this, and my knowledge of also, like, the history of photography is getting better, and I know more and more photographers, and I study their work and everything. So I hope in 10 years I will really be able to have a solid idea and project in mind, and really cover it for a long period of time. I don't know where they will end up. I don't know if it's a photographic journey. Anyway, it's a journey, and I hope in 10 years I will be even better and still passionate about it. So we'll see.
If you could travel everywhere in time, which era would you like to photograph the most?
Probably the 50s or the 60s, 70s. My favorite movie, for instance, I don't know if you know it. It's in English, it's Motorcycle Diaries. It's the story of the Che Guevara when he was only a student, when he was 23 years old, and he traveled through all South America on a motorbike. I think it was in 1953 or 54, maybe, like in this time. And for me, when I see that, there's a true sense of adventure, but a real one. Like nowadays, as a traveler, things are, I think, getting too easy sometimes. It's very easy with the modernity, with your phone. Like you can book everything in advance, you have a map and everything. I don't have sometimes the feeling that I'm living an adventure. Things have become sometimes too easy. So on purpose, sometimes I myself make things even a little bit more challenging. For instance, I traveled 1 month alone on my motorcycle in Peru along the Pacific coast without phone, I actually lost it, and I decided not to buy a new one. So during 1 month, I had to stop at every turn to ask my way, and it was fun. It was like back in the time, or I traveled when I was 21. I traveled to Vietnam on a motorcycle when I was 21. It was just 12 years ago, and 12 years ago I was traveling with a map, like in the old times. So I think I love this, 50s, 60s, 70s when mass tourism was not there yet, and modernity, the way we know it, was not there yet, and people were really living some crazy adventures.
And one last question. What's the main message you want to convey through your art and through photography?
It's a tough question. I'm not sure. If we're talking about Breath of Modernity, with this project in particular, I would love, that people understand what's going on with this modern world, and with these communities. We're in a way we're losing something, humanity speaking. I don't know if I say it well, in English, but I've seen so much, for instance, Quechua mothers who just put their 3-year-old kids by the road or trail or whatever and ask for money, to tourists. And for me, this is the end, of a century-old culture and something, when people just we're losing something, so what applied to this community, to this culture in Peru could be totally applied to anywhere else in the world. I think it's a common problem, to all the indigenous communities around the world.
So, Nicolas, thank you again for being with us. And it was a pleasure for me to talk to you again. And before leaving, I just want to leave a small message to all our viewers. If you enjoy what we do, keep subscribing and leave a like, because your support is what allows us to continue creating unique conversations about street and documentary photography. And don't forget again that now you can also find and listen to the Eyeshot podcast on all major platforms from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, and Amazon Music. Thank you, and see you next time.